So did you want to talk about this notion that the city hasn't cut enough?
Oh, I mean, it's very silly. Certainly the city has for many years been a leader in governments at every order of government across this country in efficiency, in keeping our services lean. Of course, there's more we can do, but the work we've done on the service-based reviews, the zero-based reviews, is really country leading. And we have, as you know, we've seen hundreds of millions of dollars of savings come in the operating budget every year. So it is a bit of a shame when we're tarred with the same brush as other orders of government, because particularly we've done that with amongst the lowest property taxes in the country and without running an operating deficit.
There's concern though, I guess, for those businesses outside of downtown because of assessments that might see a hit, and the council is looking at cushioning the blow. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I'm going to try and explain, so I'll take a little bit of time here, what the situation is. So council agreed earlier this year to have an effective tax rate freeze. That's for residences and for businesses. But that means the rate is frozen. So as the GST is 5% for everybody, if you spend more, obviously you're going to pay more. And in residences every year, the assessment goes up and down. Some people pay a little bit more, some people pay a little bit less. But generally the band is quite narrow, so that you're pretty close to the average home and what the average home pays. This year, similar to 2009, 2010, the band for non-residential, for businesses, is very wide because you've seen a real decline in downtown business values as a result of higher vacancies. So as a result, people outside of the downtown core whose assessment has stayed the same or gone up a little bit or even gone down a little bit will end up paying quite a bit more. And given the small business environment right now, council is really trying to figure out how do we cushion that blow. And so we have to answer two questions over the course of this budget time period. One is, how much can we afford? So how much can we actually put in to cushion the blow? And number two is, which businesses do we target? Because basically any design of any program that doesn't give the same to everybody is going to miss some people. And so we've been working really hard on thinking about which businesses are the ones that are going to be the hardest hit, which ones are the ones that need the help the most.
We saw things get a little testy in there when one councillor didn't want to sit down. Is a speaker needed?
Oh, I suggested that a long time ago. I think anything that makes the committee, makes council work better would be a good thing. But I think there's two things to keep in mind here. Number one is, there certainly are city councils where the council is sort of a rubber stamp for decisions that have already been made. And I'm not into that. I really do think council needs to be a place for open debate, testy or not, on issues. And of course, it's the responsibility of every member of council to use that time responsibly. You can't blame the chair if people are going to turn on their lights for every single thing that they talk about. And number two is that doing that work in public with everyone, you got to figure out a good way to do it. And if council wants to try something new with a speaker or something like that, that's great. That idea has come up many times before, and bluntly, nobody wanted to do it. So I'm happy to try anything. But basically, if the biggest complaint the councillors have, and it is the biggest complaint the councillors have, is the meetings are too long, well, we're running a pretty good place.
Do you think the meetings are too long?
I get a bit tired, but like I say, that's democracy. We certainly do not go all night like the legislature or the House of Commons do. And I have many times over 6 years, at least twice a year, gone to council and said, how can we make your job better? How can we make the city better? And the only complaint I ever get is the meetings are too long. So in other places in the world, there are much bigger complaints. So if that's our biggest one, yeah, we'll fix it, but it's not really number one on my list.
When it comes to the adjustments, you're also proposing a bunch of fares stay the same, like transit,
not quite.
But how do those fees, I think it's 101 for an adult pass this year, but is transit getting the revenue to make up what they should have had? Because I think it's supposed to be 105.
Right, so there's two things here. So if council passes the budget today, you will see modest increases in different user fees in 2017. Some have been frozen, some have modest increases. Excuse me. But what you won't see is the 2016 fare increases. Remember that we froze those, and this budget includes making that 2016 freeze permanent. So in other words, would have been $105, it'll be $101 if I have my numbers right. Transit has a particular challenge because as we've lost so many jobs in the downtown core, transit ridership has really declined. And transit has to be within a ratio of 50 to 55% of their revenues comes from the fare box. And they're going to be challenged to make that ratio, particularly if we hold the fees at a lower level than what they were originally planning. So that means that we got to make it up in ridership. But that, I hope, is a short-term blip that we tend to see when there's an economic downturn.
How significant is the $20,000 cut in services, though?
Not very. Not very. I don't recall what the total number of transit service hours is, but 20,000 is not very much. I don't even believe that's a full route. I could be wrong on that. But the idea there is really a cut in services that were planned for growth, and the growth has not really materialized.
I can do one last question.
The budget's sort of reflecting the new economic reality. It's being sold as adjusting to the downturn. Does it go deep enough, or is it a one-shot wonder? And give us some examples.
No, it does. It definitely goes deep enough. There are some service cuts, for example, the 20,000 hour cut in fares, but people have really told us loud and clear, while they want government to be efficient and as cost effective as possible, they also don't want us to add to the problem. They don't want us to throw out people onto the street and really cut services very significantly that they require in order to be successful. So I'm happy with this. Certainly we've been shaving away at the budget the whole time I've been mayor. The only services that we've really invested in are transit and soon the green bin. But beyond that, we've been holding things steady or shaving away at things as we need to. And we need to continue doing that. At some point, you can't do that anymore. And you really do have to look at the services that are needed in a growing city. So will we be able to continue this level of service every single year? I don't think so. Will we be able to hold on to the freeze this year? I think it's the right thing to do.
And next year?
Next year is a different question for a number of reasons there. Now we're talking about 2018 when you say next year. So for 2018, there are a number of considerations around what's the economic growth going to be? Will downtown vacancy bounce back? What will inflation look like in the city's various costs? So it's really up in the air. Normally at a mid-cycle adjustments, we'd have a much better projection of the second year, and I deliberately am not asking for that this year because there are just too many variables. Certainly if I'm still in this chair, I will continue to push for the same kinds of efficiency gains.
I just wanted to ask your thoughts about Uber. A taxi committee on Friday said 222 more taxi licenses, but delay the arrival of other TNCs for 3 months.
I find that argument incomprehensible. I do not understand how adding more licenses onto the streets is going to help the existing cab drivers compete with Uber at all. I don't see it as anything more than an increase in the stand rents that the cab drivers pay to the brokerages. So I will listen very carefully when that comes to council on Monday to that argument. I do think that the minor bylaw changes that are being proposed to allow more transportation network companies to operate in Calgary are very reasonable. Back in February, is that when we passed it? So back in February, I said that our model is a model for the whole country, and I'm really happy to say that the TNCs have given in on all the important stuff, on insurance, on licensing, on inspections, on all the stuff that's around safety. And the amendments that are being proposed are relatively small amendments around how we collect the fees. And frankly, they're probably right. We probably needed to be a bit more flexible in the fee collection. So I think that these amendments are actually very reasonable to a bylaw that puts people's safety first.
Are we getting a Calgary Next update? Calgary Next update?
Not anytime soon. I think that has been deferred to January for council, as I recall.
So some of these development areas, like you're talking about McMahon Stadium and all that, isn't that cross purposes?
Not really. I actually had the same question when I read the budget documents and really pushed in a little bit on what are we talking about here. So the Northwest Innovation Hub, as they're calling it, is really about a whole bunch of things. It's about the University Research Park. It's about attracting knowledge-based industries there. It might be about a field house, which has always been our plan for where to put the field house at the Foothills Athletic Park. Similarly, I don't even like using the term cultural and entertainment district to describe the second priority. I just call it East Downtown, because there is a whole whack of things in East Downtown that could use some investment to attract more investment. So, for example, in the East Village, We've spent about $300 million and attracted several billion dollars of private investment. So certainly, you know, for example, we need a better, we need more hotels south of the tracks, close to the Stampede grounds to involve a whole bunch of things happening. We need to finally build out 4th Street or Olympic Way into that sort of entertainment district that it's been envisioned for a long time. Olympic Plaza really needs a facelift. We have to think hard about what we're doing with the Arts Commons and whether we need to expand there. So it's a whole whack of things in there. And I know that everyone would have focused immediately going, is this about an arena and a stadium? But it just so happens that the areas of geographic investment are also areas that might have that kind of investment after a long discussion. Okay, thank you.